Hello everyone, my name is Curtis. This is my human-sized dog, Cisco. Giddy. And this is my soon-to-be fiancée, Antonita.
Hi everyone, it's Antonita here.
And of course, we have to mention the rolling earthquake that Cisco and I call home. We travel the US full-time, and it has treated us very well. While Antonita isn't here with us just yet, she will be joining us as soon as she can. You will all get to meet her in a couple of months when I go and visit her, but for now, it's mostly just going to be Cisco and I. Now, before we get started, I would just like to thank Open Roading, Wild RV Life, and Happily Ever Hanks. They have been a huge inspiration for me starting this channel, and we'll see how it goes. Today, we're going to be installing a couple of additional security cameras on the RV and go over a few different ways that we keep ourselves safe while we're boondocking. Before we get started, I would just like to do a disclaimer. This is how I've chosen to do it on my setup. This might not be the best option for everyone. So with that out of the way, I have a PoE switch that I'm going to be installing on the roof. This will allow me to add additional security cameras in the future, as well as some outdoor access points or anything else that can be powered over PoE. For those of you that aren't familiar with it, PoE is a standard that allows you to power a device over an Ethernet cable. So that way you'd only have to run a single cable. These are the two cameras that we'll be installing. These are really cool because they have infrared night vision, so you can see in the dark when there isn't any ambient light, but they also have spotlights built in. So if I'm wanting to let people know that they're on camera, I can have the lights automatically turn on when a person is detected. You can also have two-way conversations, and they have a lot of really cool features for the price point. To be clear, this video isn't sponsored by anyone. However, I've used these cameras quite a few times on different projects for clients of mine, as well as other cameras that I have on the RV, and I have had great success with them and highly recommend them. This is the support panel that I think we're going to be mounting the switch on. This side has no wiring running through it. Let's see if the self-tapping screws are going to work, and we will go from there. All right, well, the self-tapping screw worked quite well. So I'm going to tilt mine a tiny bit. Okay, so that didn't go as smoothly as I thought it would. The ladder isn't stable, so it's very difficult to get some pressure on the drill, but I got it. I'm thinking I'm going to power this over PoE as well. So it's not really meant to do that. For right now, we're going to be running all of the power over a single cable, and we'll only be getting 100 megabits per second, which is going to be more than enough for these two cameras. I have a full box of Cat 6, so if you're limited on how much cable you have, don't be quite as wasteful as I'm about to be. But I'm going to pull out probably 10 or 15 feet more than I'm actually going to need. That way I can use the same box to pull all of these cable runs at the same time. All right, so now that I have the cable runs cut to size, I'm going to be using some pull rods to run through the strut channel and use these to pull the cable through much easier than trying to fish the wire through myself. So now that I got the cable up here, we're going to be terminating the end of this for both power and data. So as I'm editing this video, I go to grab the footage of me making that cable, and apparently my phone stopped recording. I don't know if it overheated or what. So anyways, we are going to make a duplicate of that cable to show you kind of how it works. So you take a normal Ethernet cable. So you strip off the sheath. For the data side, you're going to need the orange and the green pairs. So when you're only running at 10100 or 100 megabits per second, you only need these 4 wires. The other 4 aren't being used. So I've kind of repurposed the cable and used the green and orange cables for the data and taken out the brown and blue and used it for power. So this is basically how a passive PoE injector works. I could have used that. I didn't have those pieces with me, so I ended up making my own. So this is how you make the cable. You're basically making it like any other normal Ethernet cable, except the first 3 wires need to be together, and this green wire has to go 2 spaces over. So as you will see in a moment, those 2 spaces are very important. But anyways, once you get that in place, you can terminate the cable. So that looks pretty good. So then you can take the other 2 pairs of cables and use them for power. So that is the end result. As long as this is protected from the weather, it doesn't look pretty, but it's going to work. I would never do this in a professional environment or in an environment where I'm getting paid to do this for someone, but in my own personal setup, it works well enough. And if I have an issue with it later, then I can replace it with a proper adapter. But for now, that's what we're going with. All right, so we got the cable ran through here. Let's just try and pull it out. There. All right, so this one we can terminate normally. All right, we are good to go. I'm going to pull all of this cable through and start feeding it from this side. So now we're going to be drilling the holes and mounting the camera base plate. I'm going to be using really low profile screws to make sure they're not sticking out the back too much. Okay, so those holes are drilled. So now we are good to screw on this faceplate. Never mind. The hole needs to be a little bit bigger, or I need stronger screws, but yeah, the hole needs to be bigger for these. Let's try that. There we go. And I'm going to tighten these by hand. Good. Nice. That's not going anywhere. So then I can hide this inside the channel. And that is effectively what it's going to look like when it's done. Just minus all the messy wires and the fact that it's not plugged in. Okay, so now we're going to be running that cable that's going to the switch over here, and we're going to go through this distribution box that I have for my solar and Starlink. I was planning on doing this upgrade at some point, so I already pre-drilled a hole and left a grommet already there. So I can take out that temporary placeholder of sorts and run the cable through the distribution box and inside of the trailer. So that cable is ran. I pushed all of the spare wire that I had into the compartment that I'm going to be wiring this up. So I typically like to leave a little bit of a service loop in the box. So that way I've got a little bit of extra cable both for inside and outside if I'm in a position where I need it. Let's go ahead and close up this box because we should be done with it. All right, now that most of the cable is ran, I'm going to get things tidied up and finished up over here. So there's the final product with the switch mounted and all of the cables ran to it. So at this point, I just need to finish wiring up that camera, hook up the other end for the switch, pull that cable through, and hook up the front camera. Now, when you're removing these screws, be careful because they aren't retained in any way. So fortunately, I've installed enough of these to know that. But if it's your first time installing it and you're up on a ladder and the only place for the screw to go is down into the dirt, be very cautious. So I thought I was being clever using one of my magnetic mounts for recording to catch the screws. The cover plate is not magnetic, so it is now way down there. All right, so that is the final result for this rear camera. I have all the cables ran pretty much the way I want. I'm probably going to come back through with some zip ties to just hold everything in place exactly where I want to keep them. I'm going to go and hook up the switch now and get it powered, so I can look at this camera and make sure it is pointed exactly where I want it, because I'm mostly wanting to cover all of my tool storage and just be able to see behind the RV. So yeah, let's go get it hooked up and see what it looks like. So inside that cabinet is where I'm going to be wiring everything. That is currently essentially my junk drawer. I'm going to be doing a video on my server as well as my network setup. I'm going to be cleaning that out and showing all of you a kind of a deep dive into the tech upgrades that I've done to the RV. But for now, this is what you get to see. All right, so this is what we have on this side. So that's going to plug into a switch that I already have up here in this cabinet. And then the power supply for the PoE switch is going to plug into that. So hypothetically, once this gets plugged in, that security camera at the back should come online. So let's get this plugged in and see what happens. All right, so I'm not going to go through all of the troubleshooting steps that I just went through because ultimately it was me having a bunch of brain farts that was the cause of some of these issues. But basically what happened was initially I got everything plugged in and nothing was coming online. I checked for power. Power was good. It looked like all of the cables were functional. I wired the RJ45 plug wrong. Because I was taking 4 out of the 8 wires and using them for power, it made wiring the plug a little bit more difficult. And I forgot that I needed to have 2 spaces between some of the wires, and I actually put 1. So ultimately that led to about 45 minutes of me trying to figure out what was wrong. I rewired those plugs and everything came up fine. So this is what the camera looks like and sounds like. I'm very happy with it. The quality's pretty good. I'm going to adjust the viewing angle a little bit. It definitely meets my needs. I don't need anything ultra high def, but 12 megapixels is definitely more than your standard Ring doorbell. So it's more than enough for my needs. I'm super happy with it. I'm going to leave the front camera for tomorrow because I have a lot to clean up. So I will see you all tomorrow. So I was about to clean up and I realized I had one very important job to do before that. Do you want to go for a walk? Yeah? Come on. Go bull! Hello everyone, welcome to tomorrow. So today we're going to be focusing on the camera at the front, and it should be pretty straightforward because we already have the cable ran. The only thing that I anticipate being an issue is actually getting access up there. It's going to be kind of awkward with the ladder, so we'll see how things play out, but let's get started. So I was able to get the ladder situated in a way that will allow me to access where I want to put the next camera. So this is going to be the exact same process as the camera in the rear. So I'm just going to do a time lapse to show the process quickly and then the final result. So I ended up mounting the camera plate onto the bottom of the solar panel instead, which I actually think I'm going to like better because I think it's going to give me a better viewing angle, both in general and especially at night. With it being tucked so far back, I'm pretty sure the infrared would have been reflecting off of the white fiberglass or whatever the material is made out of. So I ended up putting it on the solar panel, and I think I'm going to be pretty happy with that. So that's going to work out perfect. It gives me exactly the viewing angle that I was hoping for. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up the wiring, and we should be good to go. So I got the front camera installed and all of the wiring cleaned up. So the black wire on the left is actually the solar panel wiring. And then the white wire that you can kind of see there is actually the wire for the camera. So that wraps up the install of both of the security cameras. Moving on to other forms of security. So I use a system called Wyze, W-Y-Z-E, and they have a pretty good system for home monitoring in the sense of an alarm system. Now, I'm going to get pretty detailed here, so if you're not really interested in details, I'm going to put chapters in this video, so you can feel free to skip ahead. It works very well, except the issue that I've run into recently is because I travel full-time, I'm in areas where the internet can vary. So right now, I'm using T-Mobile, and I'm getting 400 down by about 50 to 60 up. And that is phenomenal, especially for being in the middle of the desert. Sometimes T-Mobile doesn't cover the area that I'm in, so I will end up using Starlink. Now, the issue that I'm running into is when T-Mobile isn't working and my router fails over to Starlink, the Wyze hub goes offline. I'm not sure what the reasoning is behind that because I have settings enabled on the router that will disconnect all connections and force them to reestablish a connection. So any previous tunnels that had been established would be shut down, and normally they should just reconnect on the new internet. That doesn't happen. With the Wyze hub, I want to know if someone's opening my front door, or if the temperature is getting too hot or too cold, if there's a water leak. That system monitors a lot of different things, so I need it to be online as often as possible. I reached out to their support, and they basically said, update the firmware and I should be good. That hasn't fixed anything. I've had to factory reset it a few times. Nothing has worked. So I had to get a little bit creative and figure out my own solution. I realized that if I let the battery die in the hub and powered it back on, it would come online again, and I wouldn't have to factory reset it and re-add it to my account. What I ended up doing was I took it apart and removed the internal battery, because with my power system, I don't really need it to have a secondary battery. And in this setup, it's only causing problems. So I now power it through PoE, And if I get an alert that says that my hub is offline, I can go into my Unify controller and power cycle that port, and it immediately brings the hub back online. So overall, I am very fond of the system. It's got its quirks, but I finally figured out how to make it reliable for my needs. It might not be the best solution for all of you. However, that's what I've used, and it works very well for me. Now, one of the other ways that I monitor what's going on with my RV is through the Victron Cerbo GX. I don't have many Victron devices. However, I do use it to monitor my battery system and the temperature inside the RV, as well as my propane levels and other systems like that. So if the Wyze hub does go offline, I can at least still be notified if the temperature in my RV gets too cold or too hot, especially for the days that I'm leaving Cisco behind. I want to make sure that he's safe. Now, speaking of Cisco, he's also part of my security system. So as many of you can tell, Cisco is a very large dog. Many compare him to a small horse. He's actually a Dogo Argentino, so he's very strong and very protective. They were originally bred for hunting wild boar, and they're great family dogs if they're raised correctly. Cisco is extremely friendly, but he's very protective. That makes him a fantastic dog to have with you while you're boondocking, because he's going to get along with everyone until you want him to be protective. Come on, this way. Come on. Good boy. Well, I think that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If any of you have any questions or comments or suggestions to make these videos better, please leave them in the comments section because I would love to hear your feedback. So please hit that subscribe button and I will see you next time.